The stars over Sector 9 Delta shimmered like indifferent eyes watching the slow death of trust. Admiral Jacob Nolan stood at the bridge of the UEN Resolute, his hands clasped behind his back, boots planted firm on the deck. The fleet, 32, ships strong, hung in high orbit above the contested planet Jaristophore, a jungle world caught in a political tug-of-war between two alien factions. Their mission had been clear: enforce peace, stabilize the region, and evacuate civilians. Then the message came. By direct order of the United Earth Council, the AI read aloud, Fleet Admiral Nolan is to cease all operations immediately and stand down. Do not engage. Retreat protocols are rescinded. The bridge fell silent. Lieutenant Rana spoke first. That doesn't make sense. The evacuation isn't complete, and scans show mobilization on the surface. Weapons are coming. Online. Nolan didn't answer. His jaw was tight. Something was off. Deeply off. He tapped a command into his console, pulling up the last secure channel from Earth. Blacked out. All outgoing links from Central Command had gone dead 10 minutes ago. Helm, he said finally. Voice like steel. Pull the fleet into tighter formation. Defensive posture. Keep weapons on standby, but do not fire unless fired upon. Aye, sir. Nolan stared into the dark of space, beyond the veil of protocol and politics, and felt something twist in his gut. This wasn't a delay or miscommunication. This was a setup. They came from behind the planet, hundreds of them. Alien vessels, sharp-edged and fast-moving, erupted from orbit like a school of piranhas from shadow. Their signatures were unmistakable. Thalzar Coalition, supposed allies, of the Council. Their lead dreadnought Vraxandul locked weapons before they even completed formation. Sir, they're targeting our medical frigates. Shields up. Get the civilians out of here now. Too late. Twin beams of plasma tore through the Horizon Mercy, splitting the hospital ship in two. Screams flooded the comms, then cut off in static. Nolan's hands gripped the rail as more of his ships, lit up in flashes of fire and debris. The UEN Valor disintegrated under a sustained torpedo barrage, and the Orion's fist tried to retreat, only to be gutted from bow to stern. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Where the hell is the Council? Rana whispered. They're watching, Nolan growled. They did this. Another blast rocked the Resolute, sending crew sprawling. Sparks rained from a ruptured conduit as smoke filled the bridge. Nolan pulled himself up and looked at the fleet status. 19 ships gone, 8 crippled, 5 still standing, and no reinforcements coming. They'd been betrayed, not just by their enemies, but by the very people who had sent them here. Patch me into all remaining ships, he ordered. Full fleet channel. The comms flickered, then stabilized. This is Admiral Nolan, he said, voice calm despite the storm outside. The Council has turned on us. This isn't a war, it's a purge. They fed us to the wolves. He paused, then leaned in. Get your crews ready. We're punching out of this death trap. And when we make it home, his eyes burned with fury. We're going to show them what it means to betray Earth's sons and daughters. The fleet limped through the black void of uncharted space, wounded and hollow. Only 5 warships remained. The once proud Earth Expeditionary Force had become a ghost of its former self. Charred hulls, exposed decks, and engines stitched together with desperation and engineering miracles. But it moved. Slowly, stubbornly, it moved. Admiral Jacob Nolan stood in the strategy room of the Resolute, surrounded by flickering holograms of ship statuses. UEN Gallant had no working shields. Hammerfall was down to 1 engine. Resolute herself had taken a plasma lance through her lower decks, 57 dead in a single flash. 17 hours until we reach Terran space, Lieutenant Rana reported. If we don't fall apart first. Nolan didn't respond. He was staring at a redacted transmission they'd intercepted during their retreat. Council channels, encrypted and corrupted, but the few fragments they decrypted made his blood boil. Fleet deployment is complete. Earth's presence neutralized. Maintain blackout. Neutralized, they hadn't even tried to hide it. He looked at his crew, exhausted, bloodied, patched up with med gel and duct tape, and saw something terrifying. Resolve. They weren't broken. They were furious. Put me through to Earth. Nolan said. Rana blinked. Sir, the Council will intercept. Do it anyway. Burst transmission encrypted. I want every colony, every outpost, every civilian ship to hear me. No more lies. No more silence. Rana gave a tight nod and activated the long-range comms. Nolan stepped into view of the recording drone. He didn't wear his uniform jacket. His face was bruised, one arm still bandaged. He looked every bit the survivor of betrayal. This is Admiral Jacob Nolan, commanding officer of the Earth Expeditionary Fleet. If you're receiving this, you need to hear the truth. He let the silence drag for a second. Let the weight of it settle. We were ambushed. 32 ships went in. 5 made it out. And we weren't ambushed by pirates or rogue factions. We were betrayed, sold out by the very council that claimed to represent us. The United Earth Council ordered us into a trap. No reinforcements, no rescue, just silence. Cold, calculated silence. He leaned in, voice low, coiled like a spring. They thought we'd die quietly, that we'd vanish, and no one would ask questions. But we didn't, we survived, and now we're coming home. The signal cut. Across the Sol network, across Luna, Mars, Europa, and the orbital rings of Titan, every screen lit up with Admiral Nolan's face. In the undercities, the mining rigs, the outer frontier colonies, people stopped what they were doing. They watched, they listened, and then they rose. Civilian shipyards shifted from construction to retrofit. Engineers reprogrammed mining drones for repair work. Veterans volunteered en masse. Young men and women lined up not for diplomacy, but for war. Within hours, Earth's internal networks were flooded with calls to action. Hashtags became battle cries. Remember Xeris? Bring them home. Never again. On the Resolute, Rana turned from her console. Earth is responding. We've got engineers transmitting schematics, civilians opening up supply caches. Even a rogue Mars AI sent us new weapon designs. Nolan allowed himself a breath. Not relief. Purpose. They wanted to silence us, he said, voice steady. Instead, they woke us up. The Sol system became a forge. In orbit over Mars, the Tycho Bastion, once a civilian engineering hub, was reborn as a war factory. Across the asteroid belts, mining drones repurposed their laser cutters into ship-caliber beam cannons. Civilian freighters were stripped and refitted into armored gunships. Every orbital platform, every dry dock, every backwater facility was pulled into one purpose: vengeance. Earth wasn't waiting for apologies. Admiral Jacob Nolan stood on the hull of the newly recommissioned Resolute, watching as the first prototype of the Vengeance-class cruiser emerged from the Martian dry dock. It was nothing like the ships that had died over Xeris IV. This one was built to kill. No ceremonial curvature, no diplomatic housing, no compromise. Its hull was matte black and angular, armed with triple-mounted railguns, missile pods capable of planetary saturation, and a central energy cannon reverse-engineered from alien tech. The ship's AI, named Scourge, was entirely independent, bred from Earth's most advanced wartime neural net experiments, smart, ruthless, and loyal only to Earth. Rana stood beside him, arms crossed. It's ugly, Nolan smiled. Good. I don't want it to look peaceful. Behind them, the fleet grew. Within weeks, the first wave of Earth's new armada came online. 30 ships, half Vengeance-class, half retrofitted destroyers from surviving civilian hulls. Thousands volunteered. Some were trained officers. Most were angry, grieving, and ready to fight. On Luna, massive towers broadcast holograms of the dead from Xeris IV. Children, engineers, medics. Faces that couldn't be explained away by diplomatic necessity or strategic ambiguity. People remembered. A unified message echoed across the colonies. They burned our fleet. We're lighting the stars in return. And the Council? Silent, cowardly quiet, their worlds locked down, communications redirected. They hadn't expected Earth to survive the betrayal, let alone to rally. Now they scrambled behind defensive alliances, calling Earth's reaction irrational and aggressive. They pushed propaganda through neutral channels, warning other species that humanity had become rogue. But some weren't listening. At Saturn's edge, an alien scout ship hailed Nolan's fleet. It was unarmed, its hull bearing the crest of the Zentari, once minor council members, now defectors. Their envoy, a four-eyed bioluminescent strategist named Harvek, spoke through translator drones. "We have watched Earth suffer. The Council is not what it pretends to be. We have records, documents proving their orchestration of the Jari's trap. If we give you these, we want safe harbor and revenge." Nolan didn't hesitate. "You'll have both." With the Zentari's data, Earth gained something far more valuable than new weapons: justification. The next target was chosen carefully, a mid-tier council world, Varela Prime, a lush agri-world turned logistical nexus, whose leadership had been among the voices calling for Earth's containment. It was defended but not expecting a strike. And Earth's fleet wasn't coming to negotiate. As Resolute led the Armada toward Varela's orbit, Nolan gave one simple command: burn their sky. Leave something behind for the Council to bury. The stars had once been symbols of peace. Now they'd learned to fear Earth's shadow. The Council's outer systems were silent but not empty. After the destruction of Varela Prime, Earth's fleet vanished from known space. Intelligence leaks, seeded through anonymous channels, hinted that the humans were regrouping. In reality, they were hunting. Admiral Jacob Nolan knew better than to march on the Council head-on. The inner systems were fortified with centuries of complacent arrogance, orbital guns, AI defense arrays, even star-cracking deterrents. A direct assault would be suicide. But secrets? Secrets had always been the Council's true weakness. With the help of the defected Zentari and a growing underground of sympathetic species, Nolan's fleet began a campaign of targeted strikes. No declarations, no diplomacy. Communications relays were sliced out of space, Black Ops couriers vaporized mid-warp, and black market trade hubs left smoldering in silence. Each hit was a scalpel, not a hammer, and each one sent the same message: "We know where you are. And we are coming." In orbit over the barren moon of Hiron 7, Earth's stealth frigate Whisper's Edge intercepted a Council data vault mid-transfer. The vault was protected by encryption so dense it warped local space-time. Nolan ordered it cracked. 4 sleepless days later, Rana dropped the data core onto the war room table. "It's not just the Jari's op," she said. "This thing has logs going back 40 years. Resource embargoes, directed conflicts. The Council's been rigging interstellar trade, sparking brushfire wars, keeping every species just weak enough to stay dependent." She looked up at Nolan, eyes hard. "They've been doing it to everyone." Nolan stared at the spinning hologram, lines of directives, covert code names, bribes, cover-ups. The Council hadn't just betrayed Earth. They had betrayed the entire galaxy. "Get it translated," Nolan said, "and send it to every neutral system, every minor race, every outpost we've never heard of. Let the galaxy see what they've been bowing to." The broadcast went out in a pulse wave across deep space, and the galaxy responded. From the ember halls of the Vorsk Imperium to the storm archives of the Cathari Enclave, local insurrections ignited. No one joined Earth officially. Fear still held many back, but the cracks were forming. Supply lines dried up, outposts defected, a few even fed Earth fresh targets. But the Council had teeth. In the Arthas Drift, a human recon fleet was ambushed by a Council response force, 12 advanced. Warships crewed by elite Thalzar shock pilots. The battle raged for an hour before Earth's Hammerfall sacrificed herself, ramming the lead cruiser in a desperate maneuver that turned the tide, over 300 dead. But Nolan got something priceless in return: a prisoner. The Council officer, Vial Roshan, highborn and cold-eyed, sat in chains aboard the Resolute. "You're losing control," Nolan said, circling him. "Your allies are defecting, your black sites are burning." Roshin sneered. "We built this galaxy, Admiral. We carved order from chaos. What do you think will happen when that order is gone? Nolan leaned in close. Then we'll build something better, without you. With the next target in sight, a council communication citadel known as the Voice hidden in the Omega Verge, Nolan gave the order. Set course. Let's cut out the council's tongue. The hunt wasn't over. It had just begun. The Omega Verge was a graveyard of stars. Once a thriving sector of trade routes and outposts, it had become a dead zone, warped by gravitational anomalies and navigational jamming fields. It was also home to the Voice, the Council's primary communications citadel, buried inside a storm-wrapped asteroid field and protected by cloaked sentry fleets. No one was supposed to find it. No one was supposed to survive if they did. Admiral, Nolan didn't care. This is it, he told his fleet commanders aboard the Resolute. We kill their ability to speak, and we kill their control. Every puppet they've propped up, every regime they've manipulated, falls silent. The fleet moved in like a scalpel through darkness, shielded by jammers and stealth tech, bought with Zentari blood and Martian code. 3 destroyers led the way, carving a path through the asteroid belt with focused grav beams. Then they saw it. The Voice was no mere station. It was a fortress. Half a moon's mass, bristling with energy cannons, layered shielding, and interceptor bays. It spun slowly in the asteroid field like a predator in its nest. The Council had prepared for a siege. Nolan hadn't come for a siege. Deploy Nemesis pattern, he said. From the fleet's underbelly, a swarm of drones launched, each one loaded with zero-point destabilizers, guided by AI profiles harvested from the brains of Earth's most ruthless tacticians. They weaved through enemy fire, slipped past shields, and latched onto critical weak points. And then they detonated. Sections of the Voice imploded inward in silence before rupturing outward in bursts of blue flame. Communications blacked out. The station's defense grid flickered. The first wave of Earth ships punched through, guns blazing, but the Council was not silent. A fleet dropped from hyperspace, massive, ancient, and wrathful. Over 100 ships of varying design and origin, united by one goal: erase Earth. The battle became chaos. Council dreadnoughts ripped through 2 Earth cruisers before being flanked by Zentari skirmishers, now fully committed to the human cause. Martian-designed gunships dove between enemy formations, their railguns punching holes through hulls with kinetic fury. In the heart of it all, the Resolute pushed forward, shields flickering, taking hit after hit. Direct all power to forward. Batteries, Nolan ordered. Target their command deck. I want this to end now. With a final surge, the Resolute's main cannon fired. A hyper-concentrated energy lance stolen from the Thalzar and made better. It carved through the core of the Voice, splitting the Citadel in 2. The explosion was visible from 3, light minutes away. And just like that, the Council's voice went silent. Across the galaxy, systems once bound by fear hesitated. Uprisings that had smoldered now roared to life. Neutral planets declared independence. Former allies turned their weapons inward, purging their Council-affiliated leadership. The Council wasn't just weakened, it was fracturing. Back aboard the Resolute, surrounded by debris and firelight, Nolan stood in the war room. Reports poured in, defections, revolts, fractures in every Council-aligned faction. Rana read the final summary aloud. Council command nodes are offline. Majority of their fleet command scattered or destroyed. Nolan nodded once. Then it's done. But as he turned to leave, a new alert blinked into view. Unknown ships gathering at the edge of explored space. No signatures. No known species. No Council ties. Sir, Rana said, her voice tightening. We've got something else coming. The Council was broken, but something worse was watching. The Council was gone, but the stars had not grown quiet. At the edge of known space, near the Perseid expanse, strange signals began to appear. Not the Council's language. Not Thalzar. Not any known syntax, just pulse patterns, mathematical, rhythmic, calculated, and then the silence broke. Ships emerged, black monoliths, smooth as obsidian, moving with impossible precision. No heat signatures, no life signs, no response to hails. They didn't broadcast warnings, they simply erased what they encountered. The first contact was with a fringe Zentari research outpost. In less than 7 minutes, the outpost was reduced to ash. Orbital ring, surface habitat, and even the moon it orbited atomized by gravitational compression waves. Nolan stood in the command deck of the Resolute, staring at the footage. No. Demands, Rana said quietly. No communications. Just annihilation. The Council was cruel, Nolan muttered. But these things don't even hate us. We're not enemies to them. We're obstacles. Across the shattered remnants of the Council's empire, panic surged. Former Council worlds turned inward, reinforcing their planetary shields. Refugees flooded neutral systems. The Zentari begged Earth for coordination. The Cathari tried negotiating, and lost 2 moons for the effort. For once, Earth was not the aggressor. They were the line in the sand. We need a fleet, Nolan said during the emergency summit over Luna. Not a political one, a united, battle-hardened, unapologetically human fleet. If we fall back now, we hand them the galaxy. But not everyone agreed. The black ships didn't invade. They descended. One by one, they pierced into real space like needles through fabric, warping gravity around them, twisting time on nearby sensors. They made no demands, no declarations. Just presence, cold, silent. Absolute Admiral Nolan stood aboard the bridge of the Resolute, eyes locked on the central display. The enemy vessel, dubbed the Monolith by Earth tacticians, was larger than Luna, its hull impervious to scans. Around it, smaller craft moved with hive-like precision, disrupting communications and burning through scout fleets in minutes. The Alliance fleet waited in high orbit over Proxima Centauri b, the chosen battleground. Hundreds of ships, Earths, Genesis-class dreadnoughts, Zentari needle fighters, Vorsk wavecutters, Martian AI assault drones, all unified under one banner: survival. Nolan's fleet was outgunned, outnumbered, outpaced, but they weren't outmatched. All ships, Nolan said into the fleet-wide channel. You've seen what they do. They're not here to rule us, they're not even here to hate us, they want us gone, forgotten, like we were never here. He looked around at his crew, battle-hardened, eyes lit with something deeper than duty. Make them remember us. The command was given, engage. The first volley was thunderous. Railguns, particle cannons, fusion lances tearing through the void. The black ships responded instantly, forming strange geometric patterns, absorbing blasts with shifting energy barriers. One Earth cruiser, the Savant, was caught in a web of gravity knives and folded inward like paper. But for every ship lost, 10 more surged forward. Resolute led the charge toward the Monolith, escorted by 2 Cathari warbeasts and a Martian AI carrier. On Nolan's order, their weapon cores overloaded in tandem, collapsing into a localized gravity well that bent the monolith's outer shell. It cracked, just for a second. We've got a breach, Rana shouted. We can punch through. Nolan didn't hesitate. Boarding party, now. A strike team launched from Resolute, a mix of Terran commandos and Zentari shock infantry. Their target, the heart of the monolith. They breached its hull with plasma drills, stepping into a void that wasn't empty. Inside was no crew, no control room, only a vast, pulsing intelligence, an ancient biomechanical core running on principles that defied physics. The monolith was alive. It was the ship. The strike team planted the Omega device, Earth's most forbidden weapon, a collapsing singularity seeded with antimatter and coded to detonate on quantum resonance. The team didn't survive. But the detonation worked. From Resolute, they watched the monolith crack open like an egg, light bleeding from within. Its tendrils spasmed. The smaller black ships faltered, spiraled out of formation, and then, one by one, self-destructed, as if they couldn't exist without the monolith's presence. Silence returned to space. The war wasn't just won. It was survived. Across the fleet, cheers erupted. On Earth, billions wept. Nolan slumped into his command chair, bloodied and spent. He'd never see another battle, but he'd seen the one that mattered. We held the line, he said quietly. Humanity had done the impossible. They had defied extinction, not through diplomacy, not through surrender, but through unrelenting human resistance. 3 months after the fall of the monolith, the galaxy was no longer the same. The silence that followed the final battle was deeper than peace. It was respect. The kind born from fire, forged in the crucible of extinction and earned with blood. Species that once viewed humanity as reckless upstarts now spoke of Earth in reverent tones. The Council was gone, its remnants scattered, hunted, or hiding in deep space. No banners rose to replace it. No new regime claimed the stars. Instead, the void they left behind became a chance to rebuild, together. The alliance that had survived the final war now called itself the Accord of Free Worlds. Not an empire, not a ruling body, a pact of equals. And at its center, Earth. Admiral Jacob Nolan stood on the surface of Jaris IV, the world where it all began. No longer a battlefield, the jungles bloomed again under the careful care of Zentari bioengineers and Terran terraformers. A memorial stood in the place where the Horizon Mercy had once orbited. Names, thousands of them. Nolan ran his fingers over the metal etching, stopping on one, Sergeant Alina Doss, the medic who died saving 20 civilians during the Council's betrayal. She never got to see us win, Rana said, stepping beside him. Her uniform was cleaner now, bearing the insignia of the newly established Earth Defense Accord. She looked older. They both did. She was the reason we won, Nolan replied. In orbit above them, the Resolute had been decommissioned. Its hull now served as a monument in the Mars Unity Archive. In its place, Earth's newest flagship, the UEN Legacy, awaited final trials. It wasn't a weapon, it was a symbol, a hybrid of every allied species' technology. Powered by fusion, wrapped in Martian alloy, guided by Zentari navigational minds. A ship meant not for conquest, but for guardianship. Elsewhere, the scars of war healed. The Cathari opened trade with Earth for the first time in their history. The Vorsk gifted starforging technology once hoarded by their priest kings, and the Martian AI once restricted to the solar system, now sat on the Accord's governing council as equals. But Earth didn't rise by dominance. It rose because it had endured. The phrase had spread like a wildfire across outposts and war-torn. Colonies stenciled on bulkheads carved into helmets whispered in dark corridors before last stands. They burned our fleet, and we lit the stars. Nolan walked through the clearing, now a peace garden, where young alien children played beneath Terran-built towers. A statue stood in the center, one hand outstretched, the other clenched. Humanity, the shield and the spark. As night fell over Jaris IV, the stars shimmered above not as threats, not as mysteries, but as a map of what lay ahead. New systems, new species, new challenges. But one truth burned brighter than ever. Humanity had survived the void, the council, and the unknowable. Not by permission, by force of will. And if ever again the stars grew dark with war, Earth would rise, not alone, but followed.